I got rice cooking. All right, we're 1 minute late. I got 42 people waiting or here and 29 now waiting on Clifford's live stream in 2 hours that he's doing Unit 1 macro micro review. I'm not sure what it'll be like, but I'll probably be watching some of it. So let's knock these two out. We'll figure out how we're going to do attendance here soon enough, but certainly I'm going to make sure that Max has to stick around the whole time to be able to do it. One other thing before we get started, and I'll put this in a note, is that I'm going to do office hours, like virtual office hours from 2 to 3 o'clock every day. Basically, I'm just going to have a Google Meet open. If you have questions, concerns, anything, you can just dial up and we can talk about it from 2 to 3 Monday through Thursday. So it can be, specific questions, general questions about the AP test. Hey, I turned this in late. Make sure you check it. Something along those lines. It's just a lot for me to keep up with all the emails and everything else being communicated. So we're going to start doing that. But in the meantime, 2 FRQs. Neither of them really long. The reason I cut and pasted them on here into this type of into a Word document is because there is some of each one of them that is beyond the scope of topic 3, and so that's why I deleted it. You'll notice this one, 2019, only goes to C. If you were to look up the real question, it would actually go all the way to E. But as far as what has to do exactly with topic 3, last year's one only covered A, B, and C. So I'm going to page down. Hopefully you have it in front of you so you can see it. But I need a blank board to work on this one. So I'll read it and we'll do this. We'll do it along the way. I really do believe that they have to ask something about this SRAS, AD, LRAS graph in macro. It's such an overriding question of all of macro. It's the graph in macro. So Canada is an open economy that is currently in a recessionary gap. A, draw a correctly labeled graph of the LRAC, LRAS, SRAS, and AD curves and show each of the following: current equilibrium output Y1 and PL1, and full employment Y sub F. All right, so this is what I really, this is what I think our first FRQ, I don't know how many FRQs are going to be. I guess we'll find out April 3rd, but I think this has to be asked. Remember, now that we're back in macro, this is price level, and this is output of the entire economy, price level for the entire economy. This is real GDP. What do we have is we have a upward sloping SRAS curve and a downward sloping aggregate demand curve. Where those two intersect is the current price level of the economy and the current output of the economy labeled Y1. Okay? Current output and current output and current price level. Now, it does say they're in a recession, so this is what we have to remember. How do you show a recession? A recession is where the Y sub F, full employment, is where we would be if we were at the natural rate of unemployment. So this Y sub F, we would be employing more people. We would have more output. Because we're in the recession, Y sub F is greater than Y sub 1. So this is how we show our recession. That's the simple AI and AII. Any questions on that? Good. B, the central bank and the government do not take any policy action to close the output gap. So they don't take any policy action to close the output. I'm glitching out. Really? Hold on, let me see one thing. Wonder, I can't imagine. I'm on a loaner computer, so it doesn't have this, but I don't know why that is. Okay. We'll just assume we're good now. Let me know if it glitches out again. Thanks for that. B, the central bank do not take any policy action. So what we're talking about then is there is possibilities that the central bank can do. That's monetary policy. There are certain things that the the Congress can do. That's fiscal policy. We'll get to those later, but it says nothing happens. BI, explain how the economy will adjust to full employment in the long run. If we're here and no one does anything, the federal government does not get involved, eventually what's going to happen is due to this high employment, employers are going to be willing to take less money. So wages will fall. Wages become unsticky eventually in the long run. Okay, and that's what it says there. How will they adjust in the long run? Wages become unsticky. At lower wages, firms are going to hire more people. SRAS shifts right because it costs less to employ people. Okay, BII just says graph it. Okay, so graphically it looks like this. SRAS2. And you have to remember, always have arrows to show where things are going. Okay, what is again, BI, what's the explanation? The high unemployment means workers are willing to accept lower wages in the long run. With lower wages, SRAS will shift right until we reach full unemployment, until real GDP equals Y sub F. Okay, that should be a pretty basic. And you say increases. Yeah, you can say it, but it does say explain how this happens. So you have to say why SRAS increases, Julia. Okay. But in BII, it's just the graph. BI, wages increase because of the high unemployment, so wages decrease. That's the part you do have to mention. Why does SRAS shift right? Wages decrease. Okay. This is the first graph in almost every macro question. I imagine something like this will come up. C gets into the numbers. Okay, C gets into the different multipliers. Suppose the Canadian government is unwilling to wait in the long run adjustment. The marginal propensity to consume is 0.8. Equilibrium real output is 500 billion and full employment output is 540 billion. Okay, first let's go over the formula. How do we calculate how different outputs or how different government actions are going to change output? Change in Y, change in total output equals the multiplier times the change in government spending, okay? If we're looking at government spending, it's the multiplier times the change in government spending, okay? Now, how do I get the economy back to full employment? In this example, I'm currently at 500 billion and I want to get to 540 billion. So what targeted GDP change do I need? I need to get a change of 40 billion, and I need to get a positive change in 40 billion to get us back to equilibrium, okay? I need to get us a positive change of 40 billion to get us back to equilibrium. Now, what's my multiplier? If the marginal propensity to consume equals 0.8, remember the multiplier equals 1 over MPC equals, 1 over MPS. MPC is 0.8, MPS is 0.2. You can also write this as 1 over 1 minus MPC. Okay, 1 over 1 minus MPC. So what we're left with is the multiplier equals 5, 1 over 0.2, so the multiplier is 5. So if I have a multiplier of 5, my multiplier is 5, how much government spending change do I need to get that 40 billion? I just solve for change in government spending. So the change in government spending needed, and make sure you know your positive or negative, the change in government spending needed is $8 billion. Multiplier is 5. I target 40 billion to close the recessionary gap. I need 8 billion of spending. Good? Questions on B, what was that, CI? Okay, CII, calculate the minimum change and indicate the change in direction and taxes required to shift the aggregate demand curve by the amount, so the output gap. So now we have taxes. So now I'm going to do this one in red to get CII. The change, how do you get change? Isn't it, if it's a recession, will it always be a, Kevin, that's not quite English. Isn't if it's a recession, well, there's a lot of its and ifs and it's in there. I don't know, Kevin. Will it always be? Oh, does that mean it always needs to be positive? You need a positive spending. Yeah, you need an increase in spending to close the recession. Yes, if that's what you're asking, that has to be increases, and it's going to be different over here. Breaks over. All right, so yeah, it's going to be a little different over here, Kevin, when we talk about taxes. So because the taxes have to go in the opposite direction. When we're talking about taxes, the change in output equals the tax multiplier times the change in taxes. Okay? The tax multiplier times the change in taxes. So, what is my tax multiplier? Well, I already solved for my money multiplier, and the simplest way to do this is just the tax multiplier is the money multiplier minus 1. Okay, again, why is that? That is because people save a portion of the tax cut. They don't spend it all. In this example, they save 20% of it. So the tax multiplier is only 4. So my tax multiplier is 4. I still am targeting a 40. Alex Denton, I have no idea why they haven't turned off the bells yet. Okay. I agree with that, but I think they did turn off the air conditioning because it's hot in here right now. The tax multiplier is 4. I am still targeting $40 billion in positive. Okay. Now, the 4 is here, so the change in taxes is just 10 billion. Now, here's where it's different though. Understand what's happening. In order to put more money in people's pockets, I do need to reduce taxes. So the change in taxes is a $10 billion decrease, okay? $10 billion decrease in government taxes. Or I mean in income taxes. So I cut taxes by $10 billion and multiplier is 4, that gets me my 40 billion. Okay? So taxes down by 10 billion or government spending down by 8 billion. Questions? 2018 number 1, pretty simple. Yes, Kevin, I think that's what that's the way you were trying to ask that. Anything more, anything question on that? Again, there was a D and E portion of it. That had to do, I think, with monetary policy. We'll save that type of question for units 4 and 5. That is the monetary policy ones. Okay. Let's look at, can I say BI one more time? Oh, how will the economy adjust to full employment? Okay, in the long run, wages become unsticky. If there's a lot of people unemployed, they are willing to take less money. So wages fall because they were just desperate to find a job, so they'll take less money. So in the long run, wages fall. If it's cheaper to hire people, companies are going to hire more people. They're going to make more product. So SRAS, which is the overall supply of goods in the economy, shifts right because of the lower wages. Right? High unemployment leads to lower wages in the long run. Lower wages leads to an increase in SRAS. Okay. Transfers, yes, Lindsay and John, transfers use the exact same as the tax multiplier. I probably should have mentioned that then. We'll get to it in this next one, I guess. But transfers use the same formula because, again, if the government gives you a $1,200 check like's happening, what's going to happen is people aren't going to spend all $1,200 of that. Well, it's gone now. But they're going to save some of it and then spend some of it. When your family gets that check, you won't spend all of it. Marginal propensity to consume will tell you how much you're going to spend. So for transfers or taxes, you use the tax multiplier. For spending, you use the regular multiplier. Okay? 2015 starts off the exact same way. Okay? Again, they love putting us in a recession. So assume the U.S. economy is below full employment. Draw a correctly labeled graph of long-run aggregate supply, short-run aggregate supply, and aggregate demand, and show each of the following. What are we going to have? Probably should have found, I couldn't find one that had a positive. Oh, that's going back to my micro that I just did. Price level, real GDP. Okay. SRAS. AD, all this stuff down. You don't even have to know if we're in a recession or if we're in an expansion or if we're at equilibrium. Right? We can all start off like that. We're in a recession, so same thing applies. That means if we were at full employment, we'd be making more goods and services, so our real GDP would be higher. Looks identical to the previous one. Okay. B and C had to do with monetary policy, which again, we aren't covering yet. So we skip B and C and you'll notice it jumps all the way to D. The policymakers use a fiscal policy rather than monetary policy. Again, the three tools of fiscal policy: one, increase government spending; two, cut taxes; or three, increase transfers. Okay, those are the three things if you're trying to get out of a recession. If you're trying to close an inflationary gap, the three tools: decrease government spending, raise taxes, cut transfers. So with the pending recession that everybody believes we're coming towards, with everything going on,